Entrelac is this really cool technique that ends up looking like these woven blocks of color when you're finished. And it isn't very difficult to work. It's actually really fun to knit, but there are some unique things you have to know to be able to work it. In this tutorial, we're going to learn this Entrelac scarf, and this is a pattern by Allison LoCicero from frecklesandpearls.com. If you'd like to download your free copy of this pattern to follow along, I've left a link in the video comments just below the video, or you can find a link to the pattern on verypink.com or over on frecklesandpearls.com. First up, we're going to learn how to get started with the base triangles of the scarf. If you've downloaded your free pattern, you're ready to get started, and the first thing we're going to do is to start with the base triangles at the bottom of the scarf. But one thing I want to mention about the yarn that you choose for this. If the pattern gives you a suggestion for a specific yarn, but really anything you use that is what I call long strand dyed. This is a variegated yarn that's changing colors on its own throughout the scarf. I didn't do anything, to knit them all different colors. And the way that works is that the yarn's variegated, and instead of having little chunks, like an inch long of different colors, there are several feet of each color. And there are, I would say, several different yarn types out there that dye yarn like this. Noro is the brand that Allison uses in the pattern. And this is, I can't remember the name of this yarn, but there are a lot of them out there that are dyed this way. That makes a big difference. It makes them look like blocks, like woven blocks, like I'm sure you want them to look. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at what we're starting with. These are the bottom base triangles, and that's the first thing we're going to do. The next thing we do is tier 1, which is this left side triangle, two middle squares, and a right side triangle. And then tier 2 is these 3 squares. But right now we're down here. And I've cast on most of the stitches already. I'm using this solid color yarn because it's bulky and I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. The pattern tells me to cast on 24. And I'm using a long tail cast on. If you'd like a review of the long tail cast on, I'll give you a link here. Oops, I was one shy. There we go. But there's one thing I don't have that I'm going to encourage you to use is a row counter. You can also do tally marks on a piece of scratch paper, but you need to keep track of what row you're on while you work this entire pattern. So row 1 of the base triangle tells me to knit 1 and turn my work. So I knit 1, and this might seem odd to someone who's never done this before. I did not work all the way across the row. I knit 1 stitch, and I'm going to turn my work, which means I'm going to swap the hands the needles are in, okay? And then the next row, row 2, says to purl across all stitches in this section. Well, this section is only 1 stitch right now, so it's purl 1. Click my marker, my row counter. Row 3 is slip 1, and when you slip, you always put your needle in as if to purl, and then slide that stitch over to the right needle without working it. So row 3 is slip 1, knit 1, turn the work. Then row 4 is just like all the wrong side rows. Purl back across the stitches in that section, which is purl 2. Row 5, slip 1, knit 2. You see with every with every odd numbered row, we're increasing by 1. Row 6 is to purl across all 3 of the stitches in this section. If you can. Row 7 is slip 1, knit 3. So you get the gist of how this is going to work. Each little section is knit separately. Each of the base triangles in this case is worked separately. Our forgot to click that there. Whoops. Oh, my yarn just landed in my coffee. I think I got it out quickly enough before it absorbed very much of it. It's probably fuzzing my coffee now. Row 11 is slip 1, knit 5. And now at row 12, we have 6 stitches in this section. Row 13, slip 1, knit 6. Oh, I just came up to the part that landed in the coffee. The yarn's wet right there. Oh well. This sample will smell good at least. Okay, and then row 15 is the last row of this triangle. I'm going to slip 1, knit 7. And I do not turn the work now because I'm going to move on to the next triangle. And to move on to the next triangle, we set our counters back at 0 because we're starting with row 1 again. Row 1 is knit 1 and turn work. And then row 2 is to purl back across all the stitches in that section. Now keep in mind there's only 1 stitch in this section. You have a lot more stitches on the left needle, but row 2 is just purl 1 and turn the work. Row 3, slip 1, knit 1. Row 4 is to purl across stitches in that section, and there are just 2. Okay, that's what I wanted you to get the gist of here. This was a little easier to think of what in this section means because we were working to the end of the row each time on this right base triangle. The middle one, though, you have to remember that these 8 stitches are finished. We're done with those. Now we're working on a new section. And then the last base triangle will be worked just like the middle one was. So now that you've got the base triangles, next up we're going to work on tier 1. Now that you have your base triangles finished, let's start right in with tier 1. And again, tier 1 is a left side triangle, 2 middle squares, and a right side triangle. And here is my sample with the base triangles finished. This looks ridiculous, and everyone who I work with on Entrelac, they always want me to look at their base triangles to make sure they don't have something unique going on because it looks so weird. No, this is right. It looks this weird. So we have our row counter, and we're ready to start with the wrong side row. First we're going to do left side triangle, and your pattern spells this out as well. Row 1 is knit 1 and turn, and you're familiar with turning work before you reach the end of the row now, so that's no problem. Row 2 is KFB and turn. And to work a KFB, it's called a knit front back, and it's a 1 stitch increase. You put your needle in, wrap it and pull it through like a normal knit stitch, but don't take this old stitch off the left needle. Instead, swing the tip of your needle around to the back loop of that stitch, wrap it and pull it through, and then pull the old stitch off, and you've just increased by 1. And if you need a slower review of the KFB, I'll give you a link right here. Row 3 is knit 1, purl 2 together, and turn the work. Row 4, we have a new technique again. Knit 1, and the pattern says M1, which stands for make 1. And this is a 1-stitch increase, and to do it, we're going to use the bar between 2 stitches. So you find this bar, pick it up from front to back, and then knit it through the back loop. And then knit the last one. And if you need a slower review of the make 1 stitch, I'll give you a link right here. Row 5 is knit 1, purl 1, purl 2 together. Row 6, and from now on, all of the right side, even numbered rows, are knit up to the last stitch, make 1, and knit 1. Row 7 is knit 1, and if you are paying attention, you'll see that the first stitch, the edge stitch, the very edge stitch on the scarf is always knit, and it gives us this cool looking kind of twill edge, because the first stitch is in garter stitch. Anyway, where was I? I was on row 7 because my counter tells me knit 1, purl 2, purl 2 together, and row 8 is going to be the same as the other ones, where you knit up to the last stitch, make 1. I should show you a little make 1 trick. This is how I personally work make 1s. The result is the same, but I pick it up from front to back with my right needle, mainly just because I'm more coordinated with my right hand. Pick it up from front to back with my right needle, hand it to my left needle, and then to get your needle in there to knit it through the back loop can be tricky. To make it easier on myself, I stick my needle in the front loop, use my thumb to hang on to the yarn, and flip it to the back. Let me show you that again. I pick it up with my right needle, hand it to my left needle, put my right needle in front, put my thumb here to secure the yarn, and roll the needle over to the back. And then I wrap it and pull it through. And row 9 is going to be knit 1, purl 3, purl 2 together, turn work, whoops. Row 11 is knit 1, should be purl 4, purl 2 together, row 13, knit 1, purl 5, okay, we're almost done with this triangle. I want to for sure show you how to work the center squares in this section. Whoops. Okay, this is row 15. Knit 1, purl 6, purl 2 together, do not turn work. Okay, to move on to the middle square, I'm going to set my counter back to 0. Because now the first part of the center square is to pick up and purl stitches here along this edge. My working yarn is here, and there you'll see a row of nice double long V's, and that's what we're going to pick up. If you've done picking up and knitting before, it's very similar. Picking up and knitting, you go from front to back like this, but because we're picking up and purling, we're going to go using just the right needle from back to front under 2 legs of a V. You can see this row of V's. From back to front under 2 rows of a V, wrap the needle and pull it through to the back just like a purl stitch. Under both legs, wrap it, pull it through. You know, I think I didn't start early enough. This count isn't coming out right. It should be easy to see and pick up 8 stitches. I don't think I started close enough. There we go. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nope, didn't make a difference. But I'll work in 8 stitches, no problem. Okay. Then after we pick up those 8 stitches, we want to secure this at the bottom. So the next bit of instruction tells us to take the stitch off the right needle, slide it over to the left needle, and then purl 2 together. And that secures things at the bottom of this square. Okay, that was row 1. Then we turn the work, and the right side rows of this are easy. You just knit 8. And turn the work. The wrong side rows are always going to be the same from here on out. You slip 1, purl 6, purl 2 together, and turn the work. And so you'll repeat those 2 rows, keeping track with your counter, until this square is finished, and then you'll work a second square here, exactly the same, and then we move over to the right side triangle. And here's my next sample of work here. There's left side triangle, 2 middle squares, and to do the right side triangle, it's no great mystery. You'll understand how to do it now that you've worked and done the picking up and purling already. The first thing we do is we pick up and purl 8. Okay, so then you turn the work. And the right side, the even numbered rows in this section just tell us to purl across all the stitches in this section. So this section is 8 stitches right now. Did I say pick up and purl? If I did, I meant pick up or just knit across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, then row 3 is slip 1, purl 6, what did I just do there? This is kind of good because I just made a mistake here. I am pulling out these stitches that I just did to figure out what I could have done. 2, 4, 6, 8. Slip 1, 2, 4, 6. What is going on? I think I see this. The nice thing about this, when you make a mistake, your mistake is limited to whatever little section you're working on. So if you're watching what you're doing as you go along, there's no need to rip out inches and inches of work. Okay, here we try this again. Slip 1. Oops, purl 2 together. Okay, the thing that I want to make a note of here is that all the right side rows are telling you to knit everything in that section, but every time you come to a new right side row, there's going to be one stitch fewer. There's 7 in here now after that purl 2 together. And then the next wrong side row, I'm going to work another decrease, so there'll only be 6. So do pay attention to your counter and keep in mind how many stitches there are in that section that you're working so that you don't accidentally start working over here in this finished square. So that was tier 1. Next up, we're going to talk about tier 2. Now we're going to go over how to work tier 2 in the pattern. Let's jump right into it. Here we've finished the base triangles and tier 1, which is the left triangle, 2 center squares, and the right triangle. Let me hold that better. And we're left with 1 stitch from the right triangle. Turn the work. Whoops, that 1 stitch, I slipped it over onto this needle. It's actually supposed to be over here. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. So here's the stitch I have left over. We're going to pick up and knit now 8 stitches along this edge here. Again, here's my working yarn. Here's the 1 stitch left over. We're going to pick up and knit. And you've already been picking up and purling, so picking up and knitting is actually an easier thing. When we do this, we count the 1 stitch that we have left here as the first stitch. And that only applies to this first square. So to pick up and knit, you go in from the front to the back under both legs of the V, wrap your needle and pull it through under both legs of the V, from front to back. Let me double check this. 2, 4, 6, 8. I picked up an extra one. 2, 4, 6, 8. I probably didn't count this one as my first stitch. Now, just like we did on the last tier, we're going to secure things here at the bottom. I'm going to slide that stitch from the left needle to the right, and then do an SSK, which is short for slip, slip, knit. I'll show you how that goes here really quickly. You put your needle in as if to knit in the first stitch, slip it over, put it in as if to knit in the second stitch, slip it over, and then take the tip of your left needle and put it through the front of those 2 stitches, wrap your needle and pull it through. That's a 1 stitch decrease. And if you need a more intense review of the SSK, I'll give you a link right here. So that was row 1. We turn the work. Row 2 is just a purl 8. Row 3 is slip 1, knit 6, and then another SSK, slip, slip, knit, and turn the work. And those are the only 2 rows you need to know to work all 3 of these squares. You're going to pick up and knit along these sides and then work rows 1 and row 2, keeping track of what row you're on, of course, with your counter. And so that tier actually goes pretty quickly. Next up, we're going to talk about doing the final tier triangles. If you've made it this far in the scarf and you're ready to work the final tier triangles, these triangles are going to be super easy for you. You've already done pretty much all of the techniques involved up to this point, but let's take a look at these anyway. Here is my unblocked piece, and this would actually be huge if it was blocked because I've added an extra 8 stitches to this one. There's an extra square here in the middle, if you can see that. but it's unblocked, and so it ends up being just about as wide as the blocked one. It's the exact same yarn in both. It's funny how different it looks. Okay, for the final tier triangles, you are set up here like this. And just like before, we're going to pick up and knit 8 stitches along the selvage edge. And I'm using a smaller sample here, but if you've made it this far in the video, you are experienced at picking up and knitting by now. Okay, and then like before, I'm going to slip that stitch back over to the left needle and SSK. Turn the work. And these rows, the wrong side rows, are easy. We're just going to purl all the stitches in that section. And the stitches in the section are going to get smaller with every right side row, because now I'm going to start by knitting 2 together. Whoops, I split that. Knitting 2 together. Third time. Knit 5. SSK. And turn work. And now there are 7 stitches in this section. And that's the one thing I wanted to show you. There's one more technique I want to show you. The very, very end of the final tier triangle, there's something called PSSO. And we're not there yet, but I'm going to use this as an example to show you. The row 15 of the pattern, if you want to take a look at that, it says slip 1, SSK, PSSO. Okay? So I'm going to slip 1. You always slip as if to purl. SSK, and you're familiar with how to do that. And then I'm going to pass the slip stitch over. That's what PSSO stands for. You take the stitch that you slipped and pass it over the other one, like binding it off, and let go of it. Now, I'm going to undo that because that does not go here in this section, or it doesn't go here in the work right where I am. I just wanted to make sure you understood what PSSO stood for. I still have to finish this final triangle before I get down to row 15 to work that. Anyway, that's how to work the Entrelac scarf. Again, if you want your free copy of the pattern, it's available on frecklesandpearls.com or verypink.com.